Welcome to The Self-Made Theory, the podcast that's all about innovating, overcoming, and prospering. We interview founders, entrepreneurs, innovators, CEOs, and other exciting people about their amazing business journey. Over to your host, Ben Campbell, for this week's episode.
How do you move from being an aerospace engineer working on missile systems to running your own game development company? Well, that's part of the story of Dineth, who's the founder of Foxie Games. Foxie produces mobile-based games that sell all across the world, and some which lead their category. It's a pretty fascinating story. We cover a lot in this interview on how to start and build a company. So if you've got a side hack going on, then this is well worth the listen. There's some really great topics that come out in this interview, including how to leave a stable career path and put yourself out there to pursue your passion. We talk about what's involved in developing a game, which is a pretty complicated process, and how an entrepreneur moves from doing it all themselves to having to rely on their team. If you've got a creative itch that needs to be scratched, then I'm sure you're going to enjoy Dineth's story. My name is Ben Campbell, and this is The Self-Made Theory. Dineth Abeynayake, welcome to The Self-Made Theory.
Thanks, Ben. It's great to be here.
So you're the founder of Foxie Games?
Yes.
Let's start with your elevator pitch.
Sure. So Foxie Games builds original IP mobile games. So we take the product all the way from conceptualization to development to marketing, user acquisition, that whole sort of pipeline.
Yeah.
So essentially we're like a one-stop shop for original mobile game development. So our staff count at the moment is around 30 FTE, and we've actually released a title called Horse Riding Tales, which is the number one mobile horse riding game on the App Store right now. And yeah, we have a whole bunch of exciting new projects coming up over the next few months as well.
All right, I have to address the elephant in the room. You're an aerospace engineer by background.
Yeah.
What on earth are you doing founding and running a mobile game development company?
That's a fair question. Do you want me to go back to the beginning of
Sure.
that?
How did that happen? Because I'm sure people would be interested in understanding how you make such a big career transition.
Yeah. So to give a bit of background, I've always really enjoyed building things, whether it's, little films, short films, programming on the computer, games, whatever. Any kind of digital media where there's an end user experience and I can see how users interact with whatever I've built. I've always loved that ever since I was, 8 or something. So back in high school, I got, a few friends together and built little short movies and published them. So all that kind of stuff. By the time I made like a career choice, I went into aerospace engineering at the University of Adelaide because I felt it was, I guess, more of a stable career path. And I've always been interested in space and technology and those kind of areas as well.
And there's a lot of that happening in Adelaide at the moment,
especially
isn't it?
now, yeah. So, it was... So after graduating from university, I went into Department of Defense as a missile system analyst.
Yeah.
And I did a whole lot of weapon system analysis and a whole bunch of stuff I can't really talk about. But I also started developing an interest in business, online business particularly, things that can generate passive income like affiliate marketing or information products. I dipped my toes in all sorts of those little areas. And
so that was just side hacks, outside of work.
Yeah, definitely. Just seeing how much I could learn, really. I didn't really expect much success, and I didn't have much success in those areas either. However, I guess Foxie is the fusion of that interest in building things and that business interest as well.
Okay, so you're sitting inside of defense. Mm-hmm. You're doing a whole bunch of stuff you can't talk about.
Yes.
I assume it was interesting.
Oh, yeah.
Why did you decide to leave that?
Yeah. So after a few years working in defense, that creative itch came back because I wasn't doing it day to day and things that I'd done when I was younger, like building films and movies and things. So
was the role really around analysing, working on stuff that had already been built by others?
Yeah, it was analysis of existing systems pretty much. Yeah, that's right. So it was a very technical role, which is something I think is part of my skill set, which is useful to what I'm doing now as well. Yeah, but it wasn't that sort of building element. So I started building a few small mobile games because, the path to market was really clear. It's fairly simple to get started. It's very low cost. So once I'd built a few mobile games, actually my first mobile game that I built, I think I spent 3-4 months building it. I coded the whole thing. I released it. I think I did all the art as well, and it grossed about $150 or something.
It's not bad for four months' work.
Yeah, it's a great return on investment. But yeah, I did learn a huge amount in that process. So yeah, everything from programming, coding to I guess how you go about marketing and that product market fit and all those kind of different aspects. So I guess 8 or 9 games later, I started to see a bit more of that financial traction because I was continually iterating and developing my skills in those areas.
So were you iterating into new games, or were you modifying the games that you already had? Or
yeah, I was iterating into new games.
Yes.
I think that was going to get me, because the initial game wasn't a success by any means. I wanted to try and find that success, and yeah, I didn't think I'd be able to find it with that first game. So I kept building new games in different genres as well, trying all sorts of different things. And then, yeah, once I started understanding monetization and product market fit and all those different aspects, I started seeing more financial traction. And that's when I was thinking, so maybe there's a chance for me to take the leap and start and do this full time.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So where did you learn all those terms, product market fit? Where did you learn about those skills? Was that just by making mistakes along the way, or did you have people to talk to mentor you?
Yeah, I didn't have any particular mentors. It was really just trial by error and trial by just doing it, really. There's a lot of information out there on the internet about everything.
Good and bad.
Yeah, good and bad, that's right. But as you read about something and then you try it for yourself, and you can kind of see like what worked and what didn't. And, you start making connections for yourself about, what the direction you need to go in is.
So what period of time are we talking about? Of those, 8 or 9 games, how long did that take you from the first game through to deciding to pull the plug on defence and do this full time?
I think it was probably about 3 years because you can imagine I had very limited time.
Yep.
I was working full time, and it was just something I was doing on the weekends, after hours. So, yeah. And I was also working mainly by myself. So building entire products and releasing them, marketing them as a one-man show, yeah, it does take quite a bit of time.
We were talking just before off mic about Will Bishop, who I interviewed a little while ago. He's 17. He's probably 18 by the time this podcast is released. And you said, I wish I'd started earlier than that, earlier than where you are now. You're still a young guy, by the way.
Thank you.
If you look back at that 3 years, would you have done anything differently if you could have in terms of accelerating your learning or your experience through that 3 years?
Yeah, so sometimes we as game developers, we build things because we can or we really want to. So, our interests kind of take over what we're building, which is fair enough because it is like a passion-driven industry, right? However, if we're looking to grow a business as soon as possible, then you really need to treat each product that you're developing as its own business. So you need to look at you need to ask yourself all the questions that you would if you were starting a business, like what's the competition, how much are they grossing, how many competitors are there, all those kind of questions. And those are things that I learned slowly over time.
Yeah.
And I didn't change my mindset for quite a while during that whole process. And even once I'd started Foxie, there were still those kind of mistakes that I was making. So yeah, I guess getting into that mindset sooner was always going to be helpful, but having said that, it does take a while to learn those kind of things.
So you launch out into the deep, you leave defence.
Yep.
Is it just you, or have you hired some people? How did that first start?
So once I'd left defence, that's when I made the leap into actually hiring people. Before that, it was an entirely one-man show.
Yeah.
Yeah. So hired 2 developers.
So how did you fund that?
Initially, so we had an investor support as well.
Yeah,
in order to fund the initial stages of our growth, which was really helpful because I had just taken, left my job, which was this really stable income, and I didn't want to necessarily have to dip into my savings a huge amount because you never know how things are going to work out.
Yeah. So where did you find investors from?
The US.
Yeah. And so did you do a whole pitch thing? How did you find your investors?
No, it was more of a natural progression from pretty much a guy that I had met online and sold my previous games to.
Yeah.
We started discussing the possibility of starting this business together, essentially.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, that's pretty lucky. Most people I talk to who've gone down the investor cycle, it's a lot harder than that.
Yeah. I mean, investors look for previous success, and I had some financial traction already at that point, which makes things a lot easier. So I wasn't necessarily pitching a concept where, I think this could make money. It was more like it probably will make money, but how can we scale this as quickly as possible?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And look, we all know that investors invest not only in concept and ideas and what's already been built, but they invest in the person.
Yeah.
Right, the person who's going to run it. And given you had a relationship, I'm sure that was important for you.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
So you hire a couple of developers and off you go.
Yep. So we built our first game, which is done in a team of 3. At this point, I was doing a lot of programming as well, helping the guys with all aspects of development, pretty much using the skills I was using prior to when I was still working in defense, essentially. So we built an equestrian-related game. It wasn't Horse Riding Tales. It was called Horse Paradise. And that game, it was a fairly simple wild horse online simulator, right? So you play as a horse in this open world environment, and you take on quests and all these kind of things. So it was pretty good. It was fairly small scale compared to the kind of things that we do now, but it was a leap up from what I had done by myself.
So where did the idea for that come from?
So my little sister,
because it does seem a little left of field, and I do have to ask you, how many horse riding simulation type games are out there? Because you say that you're number one in that space.
Yeah.
Is there a lot?
There are a lot.
Yeah,
yes,
right. Okay.
Yes. So my little sister, she's actually a horse rider.
Okay.
Right. So having seen the passion that she has around that topic, and her friends as well, and then seeing the kind of games that are available for her to play in that space, I was like, yeah, there are some big players that are, dominating the market share, but there's a huge amount of space where we could come in and build something decent that's actually able to compete, So that's where the idea came from. It was from just observing what was available for that target market, which I had accessible to me because she was my sister, essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
So essentially we were building games for my sister.
Not sure that's the line you want to put in a business plan, but
no.
But I think the difference is, when you talked earlier about developers often build things that they want themselves. Yeah, that's great, but there's a lot of bias there.
Yes,
isn't there? A lot of bias, and you've really got a target market of one, but when you start looking at other people and what they're missing and what the opportunity is, that's a difference, even if it is your sister.
Exactly. As long as you're looking at your ideal target customer and trying to fulfill what they really want out of a game, then I think that's the right approach, because like you said, there's a huge amount of bias into what we want to build and why we think we can build it and why we want it. And if you're not looking at the competition and the landscape of existing games as well, then I think you're doing yourself a bit of a disservice as well, if you want this thing to grow and have traction.
Yeah, absolutely. So now you've got 3 main games out in market today.
Yeah.
Is that?
Yeah. So we have quite a few games at the moment. We iterate really quickly. So we tend to release, the production cycle for a game can be 6 to 8 months. So we do have quite a few releases.
So when you say production cycle, so you're talking from idea through to release, or?
Through to release,
okay.
Yeah, on the App Store and Google Play. Yeah. So that's about 6 months. So we have quite a few different games and concepts, but in terms of main games, so we have Horse Riding Tales, and we have Dino Tamers, which is a dinosaur take on a similar sort of concept. And we have some other smaller games as well. But we have some larger scale games coming up over the next few months as well.
Okay. On the same platform, on the mobile platform?
On the mobile platform. Yeah. Because the idea is always to try and take that next leap in terms of quality and sophistication and production value, so that we can grab onto those bigger opportunities. We don't just want to stagnate and do the same thing over and over and over.
Yeah.
So that's the mindset I had when I went from building my own games to building games as a team. One of the main reasons I wanted to do that was to be able to compete against larger players with bigger games. Yeah.
How important is it when you build a new game? And so if I look at, Horse Riding Tales versus, Dino or Dino Tamers, how important is it to leverage the experience you've had in one game into the other?
I think it's very important, but I think it's also important that you don't just reskin one game and sort of try and come up with a new, try and release a new game, like a wolf in sheep's clothing sort of thing, right?
And I imagine that's attractive to do because, if you look at, because it's easy, right? If you look at Horse Riding Tales, I assume it pitches to a particular demographic.
Yep.
To skin that into, a game that works for young boys, right, would be easy to do.
Yeah, it would definitely be very easy. But you're not adding a lot of value to the product by doing that, or to your brand.
Yeah.
So the way I like to look at leveraging existing code base and things like that is to take that understanding that you and the team have learned and trying to, push that into the new game as much as possible, but make sure that the new game has a new theme, an entirely different core loop. That's what the player does day to day in the game, just so that it is something, an entirely new experience. It's not familiar. You feel like you're playing a different game.
Yeah.
Even if it has similarities, you don't want it to be too similar.
Yeah. So can you talk to what the game development cycle looks like? Because I imagine there's a bunch of people listening who either not gamers themselves or don't understand how complex it is.
Yep.
Can you talk to just sort of the general steps on hey, we've got an idea, or even coming up with the idea?
So coming up with the idea is a lot of that analysis that I was talking about before, and making sure that you're going to be able to compete in whatever it is that you're doing. So that is just a whole lot of research. Essentially, you're looking at competitor apps, how much they're grossing, how many of them there are, trying to find out what kind of potential your app has in this space. But once you've made that decision, it comes down to the product development teams, essentially. So these are usually coders, artists, art managers, UI, UX designers, all these kind of skill sets, right? Yeah. So the programmers, the coders, build the fundamental systems of the game. So the camera system, for example, making sure that it's pointing in a certain direction and able to rotate around the player. That's an entirely coding-related problem. The artists and art managers are more so looking to get art assets into the game. So art assets are 3D models, textures, so pretty much things that make your character stand out and make the game look good from a graphical point of view. Now, whether UI, UX people come into this is...
And UI, UX being user experience,
user interface, user experience. Yep. Is trying to come at the game from a customer-centered perspective. So how would someone interact with this product? Would it be clear what the next action they need to take is, or would they get confused? So these people need to work, integrated with all the other teams to make sure that the game is usable and fun as well. Yeah, and there are other disciplines that come into this whole thing as well, like especially on the marketing side. It's a very multi-talented, multi-disciplined area. Yeah.
Are you a busy executive with not enough time to work on your business and fit in physical exercise into your day? As a business coach and mentor, many of the executives I work with understand that their most precious resource is time. On top of running their business and the demands of life in general, the challenge for many is fitting exercise into their busy lives. Harvard Business Review indicates your mental firepower as an executive is directly linked to your physical regimen. Exercise brings improved concentration, sharper memory, faster learning, prolonged mental stamina, enhanced creativity and lower stress. And that doesn't include all the physical health benefits as well. In response to this, we've launched Self-Made Cycling, our business and executive coaching services, conducted not in the boardroom but on the bike. It's a brilliant way to combine all the benefits of working on your business challenges while bringing you the physiological benefits of exercise. Years ago, a lot of business was conducted on the golf course. Today, it's time to handle your business on the handlebars. We cater for all levels of executives and cycling experience. Beginner, pro, entrepreneur, manager, CEO, weekly, fortnightly or monthly. We've got you covered. We've launched this service in January at the Tour Down Under in Adelaide, but can work with executives anywhere in the world using your smart trainer and platforms like Zwift. And don't forget to chat to your accountant. Did I hear someone say tax deduction? Visit our website selfmadecycling.com.au or call 1300 Theory. Business and cycling, it doesn't get any better.
So you mentioned before that you've got about 30 people on the team, roughly. I imagine that's grown a fair bit over the last few years.
Yeah, well, we started as 3 people 2.5 years ago. So I don't even want to calculate that growth rate,
We're here in Adelaide,
Yeah.
which we're in the Games Plus building where you guys are co-located here.
Mm-hmm.
What's going on in Adelaide with gaming? Why are you still here?
Well, the main reason I'm here is because I've always lived in Adelaide. It's a great place to live. And that's where I was always going to set up shop if I was going to do that. But now having done that for a couple of years, I can see, it's a great place to do business, really. So we have this Game Plus facility, which is a co-working shared space for all game developers. I think we have sufficient talent as well. So we haven't had huge amounts of problems in hiring, especially developers. And we've actually managed to bring people down from interstate as well. And yeah,
you've attracted interstate talent to
We
come
have,
and
yeah.
live here in Adelaide.
Yeah. So about 30% of our developers probably have come from interstate. Yeah.
And what's happening at university levels or industry training educations? How are you feeding? How's the industry feeding you?
Yeah. So AIE runs a whole bunch of game development courses, and yeah, a lot of our graduates have actually come from AIE. In terms of the industry, I'm sure you've heard of Mighty Kingdom, the biggest South Australian game developer. They sort of feed into that process a lot as well. Yeah.
You guys don't walk across the hall and pitch staff from each other, do you?
No, that hasn't happened actually.
So when you look at your company now, you've obviously had a bunch of success. How do you measure success?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Is it downloads? Is it revenue? Is it profitability? Is it customer feedback? Or is it all of those?
Yeah, I'm very, very product focused in this sort of sense. So I think it does come down to revenue and retention, because retention is essentially, if I downloaded the game or if a user downloads the game on day 0, how many people will still be playing after day 1, after day 7, and so on. So it's how engaging your game is essentially. So you can't really just look at revenue without retention or retention without revenue, because these are both really important for the long-term success and growth of your game.
Yeah.
So I tend to look at the company on a sort of game-by-game basis in terms of the products that we've released and how well they're doing, because that's going to essentially influence how fast we can grow over the next year or 2 years. If the games that we have out now aren't really doing very well, then that's not a good sign for the company. So I'm very product focused in how I look at metrics and what that means for the company as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you had any big flops, big mistakes?
We have definitely had flops, but they weren't huge mistakes, luckily. So we released a fish game about, I think, 1.5 years ago. This was a fish collecting game. It was a very different genre than we had done in the past. And we hadn't really done a huge amount of research into where this product is going to fit and compete in the landscape, right? But we actually developed...
So why did that happen? Because you've obviously talked about that a few times, about how important the research is. Why didn't that happen for this product?
I think, probably just got overconfident, to be honest. Yeah. And that can happen.
Of course it does. Of course it does. Yeah.
And also we had the certainty that we weren't putting a huge amount of resources into the project. It was just something that, we'll try it. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, then we can just move on to the other thing.
Yeah.
But we actually developed a really polished and nice looking game, but it's just that the audience wasn't quite there for it. So, that's why it's important to iterate quickly, because I guess if you're going to fail, then you want to fail fast without dumping a whole bunch of resources into it. And then you can learn from those mistakes and iterate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So along the way, if you could look back over the last 3 years, what would you do differently knowing what you know now?
Well, I would have built horse riding tales sooner. Because that's the game that really, I guess, changed the standing of the company, really, in terms of where we are and what kind of opportunities we're looking to latch onto next.
Could you have done that though? Did you put off developing it, or
because we were growing incrementally.
Right.
So we were growing as a team of 3, whereas Horse Riding Tales was developed as a team of about 5 to 8, I think. So we couldn't have actually done that. However, if we'd latched onto that concept sooner, we might have hired more aggressively and sort of, done that.
It is interesting. That does come up a lot, right?
Yeah.
In a lot of entrepreneurs, 4 or 5 years into their journey, that they should have been more aggressive at the beginning.
Yeah.
More aggressive with salespeople, more aggressive with development, more aggressive because they see the potential missed opportunity.
Yeah.
It's an interesting learning there, I think, for many.
Having thought about it, there's other than just the product opportunity, also the way I was running the company has changed a bit over the years, because you can imagine running a 3-person studio versus running a 30 or 25-person studio is going to be very different.
Of course. And it'll be different again when it's 60 people and
exactly,
70 people.
Yeah,
You need a whole bunch of new things.
Yep, that's right.
New structures and all sorts of things in place by then.
Yeah, that's right. So when I was running a team of 3, I was doing the day-to-day schedules and development and pretty much all the day-to-day management of the team was taken care of by me. But that didn't give me a whole lot of time to, I guess, think about the growth of the company, what the next opportunity is going to be, or the roadmap for future games. None of that sort of high leverage stuff, which I need to be on top of. So that stunted growth for a little while, probably, right?
So when did the light bulb go on? when did you work that out?
When I realized I didn't really have time to do this stuff, and how much. So if we wanted to build those next level games, then something was gonna have to change. I just wasn't really sure what.
Yeah.
So what we've done now is that the teams day to day, they actually take care of the day to day management, right? The scheduling, the day to day sprints, even the design decisions that go into the games themselves are handled within the teams. I only provide like roadmap level guidance, really, generally. So that frees up a huge amount of my time, firstly, and also it gives teams a lot more autonomy, responsibility,
and ownership.
Yeah, that's right. So I think it works out well.
And do you think that's turned up in the quality of what you're putting out now?
I hope so. Yeah. Because when, one of our developers can say to a friend, look at this feature, I thought of that, I built it, and it's mine, I hope that, does give people motivation and encouragement. Yeah, so I see more of what I do as guidance rather than management, even though there's a bit of management, of course.
Yeah, of course. So what do you hope for the future? So if you fast forward, so you've been 2.5, 3 years now?
Yeah.
So if you could fast forward 2.5, 3 years into the future, where's your vision? Where do you see yourself?
I'm always focused on growth if it's possible, but I think it's also important not to grow just for growth's sake. Like growth should open up new opportunities that weren't available if we didn't grow, essentially. So we have 2 exciting titles, like I mentioned before, coming out. And if they do well, then we'll probably look to expand again so that we can support these games and build additional ones as well.
Yeah. So what's the time frame around release for those 2?
Over the next few months. So one, as you came in, I was like, we're looking to release this week, and the other one will probably be next month.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, if they do well and it looks like we can latch on to even bigger opportunities, then I would love to grow again. But then, like we talked about before, all that management style and everything's going to have to shift, and there's going to be a challenge and a journey there as well.
So why is growth so important?
Because from my point of view, it's just the level at which you can compete on the market. So if you look at, you can have hits as a smaller studio, but having access to more resources gives you a higher likelihood of having hits. And we're in a very sort of hit-driven industry where, if 1 in 3 of your titles is going to be a hit, then you're actually doing really well. So that's assuming, you have 2 games out of 3 which are actually failures. And that's a good hit rate.
And so most people would look at that and go, actually, that's not so great.
Yeah.
But why is it different in this industry? And how resilient are people through those failures?
So yeah, it's a good question. I mean, as for why it's important, it's simply because the fact that hits usually make up for all the misses you've had in the past, because the hits are usually big, essentially. Like they'll more than cover lost revenue and expenses and so on. Yeah, so it's because the competitiveness of the mobile game landscape. There's so many new games coming out by so many different studios. Yeah, so I think that just kind of lends itself to that kind of model.
And the good thing is you don't have to bury them in a pit like they used to do in the old game days. Remember I'm not sure if you know the story about E.T.?
No.
It was a game that was built, this is probably 20 years ago, maybe even longer now. And apparently the rumour is that it flopped so badly. It was a cartridge-based game. That they ended up putting them all on the back of semis and taking them down to the tip and burying them in
Oh, okay. That wouldn't be a very enlightening moment for the developers that put years into it. Yeah.
So let's talk about staff and developers when there is a failure. How do they cope with that?
I think people are just generally happy to move on to the next thing. Where possible, always like to support the project because it's games are supposed to have a long life cycle to sort of get the most value out of them. So if people have been developing a game for 6 to 12 months, I'm sure they'd love to continue growing that game and seeing where it can take them. But I think they also understand that if something didn't quite work out, then we need to keep moving on and trying something different. And I think people are excited by the possibility of working on like more successful games. So if something didn't quite turn out well, then I'm sure they'd love to be part of something that did. Yeah. But we do keep moving people through unsuccessful titles into bigger opportunities because we have to.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about where your customers are. Obviously, you're an Adelaide game development company, but your customers are global.
Yeah.
Where are they? Where are they based?
All around the world, really. They're in every part of the world.
And so when you're looking at new products, do you look at geography in terms of what's important to customers in each geography?
We try to as much as possible, but it is a bit difficult to predict that kind of thing. Yeah, but to the extent that we can, we always try and target these tier 1 countries as much as we can. Yeah.
So we're recording this in February 2020. When we catch up again in February 2023, what does Foxie Games look like?
Well, I can hope that will be at least 50 to 60 staff. That I'm just going to pluck a number out of the air and say that that's something that we can aim for.
Yeah.
But actually, I'll have a better idea in the next few months after our next releases. But, always keen to grow and see how far we can take this thing. That's why I sort of started it. And as long as it seems like there's opportunities, I'll try and take it and grow it up.
So what advice would you give a young person who's looking at getting into the gaming industry?
I think in general, what's helped me a great deal is to do it yourself first. Just to have that experience across the board in art, in programming, in technical areas, and also in, I guess, marketing as well. Having that experience has allowed me to build the company faster than I would have otherwise because I knew how the pieces fit together. So I would always say, if you're looking to get into a field like games, just start building games and know how they're built. Yeah. And then, if you want to take it to the next level, then you need to learn more skills beyond that. But that's going to help you get from a 1-man show to a 3 or a 5-man show.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So when you look at the staff that come to work for you, do they have that broad depth of experience, or are they, hey, this person's an art person, this person's a developer, this person's a, whatever?
Yeah. So there's various levels of experience. Some are graduates. And some have more experience. But one common thread that most have is that they all have side projects. There's always things that they're working on the side for themselves, not just the company. And I think that's good because it develops their own skills, I guess, independently, in addition to what they do here.
And does that resonate with you because that's where you came from?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. It's always good to see that. Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, I guess I started this because I enjoyed that building process, right? And I'm right in the middle of that now, so I'm having a lot of fun. So I guess that's kind of what I wanted to get out of this process.
Yeah. Look, I love seeing industries like this, develop and thrive in Adelaide. I just think it's fantastic.
Yeah.
I had to move interstate to start my career. To accelerate my career 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And now when I look at the young people who are coming through, they don't necessarily have to do that anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, there are some specialisations where you might need to, but
Yeah.
The world and the collaboration tools that we've got and all sorts of things, I think make doing business out of here so much easier.
Especially online business, there's so many opportunities to do that, to start that at any point in your career as well.
Yeah.
And then seeing where it takes you.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Mate, thank you so much for sharing your story with us. We'll include in the show notes how to contact Foxie Games and where to download your games from, etc.
Oh, thank you.
And look forward to hearing about the next two and seeing the success that comes from those.
Great. Thanks so much.
Thanks, mate. Cheers.
Thanks.
I don't know about you, but I love hearing stories about how someone has had a complete career flip to follow their passion or side hack. If you want to find out more about Dineth or how to connect on social media and where to download Foxie apps, then head to our website, theselfmadetheory.com/podcast. Until next time, keep innovating, overcoming and prospering.